sorry, I made that sound because Mesa was there, he decided to retire, but, well, maybe, I don't know, but anyway, so that was my report, and I'll 8 years from now, I'll probably attend another one of those. Council initiated items. Number 10, a consideration of a council policy requiring 2 council members' signatures to docket a council initiated item. Mr. Baber.
This item comes from myself and Member ALESSIO, and the backstory is, for some of you who don't know, is I spent 5 years as the person who ran the docket for the city of San Diego from 2000 to 2005. I signed off on everything that went before the city council. I probably docketed 5,000 items. And there were efficiencies I saw in that eventually I wanted to bring to the city of La Mesa. And I've seen this in other communities too. So what this is, a revision of council policy 2002-059. First time ever it was cited twice in one meeting, I'm sure. And it does 4 things to increase the efficiency. One is, if you're going to put something on the docket, the current system is a council member goes to the city manager and they talk about it, and the city manager can say yes or no. The 4 things it does is, number 1, it requires the council member to put it in writing. I've always thought that you should be able to write the concept down in order to make the request, and that's generally a rule in most cities that it has to be written down. The second thing is that instead of it just being a unilateral request, that you have to get one other council member to sign off on it. Third thing is that it requires you, after consulting with the clerk, to get it in by a certain time so the clerk can maintain her regular workflow. And the fourth thing, it solves the question of, what if you don't get it in on time? Well, it rolls it to the next agenda. Very boring and ministerial, but I thought this would be a good time to do it and make things more efficient. But I'll turn it over to Member ALESSIO, who also signed the memo.
Yes, this was actually a good test case because it wasn't something that I was inherently convinced to do, and he had to convince me. But I do completely agree that it makes it more efficient. It fosters collaboration. It makes it so that people can't use items to draw attention to themselves during election years or draw attention to the press for any cause that they may like. And I really like that. My only basic concern that I have right now, which I figured we could flesh out with everyone here, is if, and the city attorney can speak to this, are we anywhere near Brown Act violation if I go to Bill, say, will you do this? We talk about it, and then Bill says, no, Christina, this is not something I'll sponsor. So I go to Mark and I say, hey, I want to do this. Are we in any trouble there?
It's going to be one of those gray areas in the law. I can read you the statute, and I think I probably will do that. And I brought that here with me today. Whenever there's a gray area, you try to avoid that. I understand that the whole purpose of this is for strictly putting a subject on the agenda for discussion. But sometimes in making the request of another to put an item on the agenda for discussion, what happens? There's discussion about what the agenda item is. Because oftentimes a council member will say, well, what's that about? Why should we put it on? And a discussion ensues. And as long as there's just those 2 council members engaged in that type of discussion, that's okay. I think when we have that same type of scenario happening when 3 council members are involved in that, because let's say the one council member A talks to B and engages in that type of discussion, and council member B rejects that, then council member A goes to council member C and does a similar thing. And then an argument can be made that there was a discussion that ensued about city business between a majority of a quorum of the council. But at the same time, I think you'll get an argument on the other side that, that was just for the purposes of formulating an agenda item. So there's going to be some gray area, and there's going to be some disagreement. And anytime you have to use discretion in order to determine what's appropriate, there can oftentimes be a problem with that. Having said that, let me just read what the provision says that governs seriatim meetings, and it's found at Government Code Section 54952.2, and that's B1. And it says, "A majority of the members of a legislative body shall not, outside a meeting authorized by this chapter, use a series of communications of any kind, directly or through intermediaries." And this is the important part. It says to discuss, deliberate, or take action on any item of business that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the legislative body. So that's where that argument comes that, that it's possible that council members are engaging in seriatim meetings to agendize certain matters. Now, on the other side, an argument could be made that, well, gee, this is really for agendizing purposes only, and the actual subject matter or topic, there was no discussion about. So, but you can see where it can move around and it can be gray.
Okay.
I'd just like to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I still see that, I still think there's merit in this idea, but I'll wait. I'll give my counter argument to worries about the Brown Act and let everyone discuss it.
I think there's ways around that. If that meeting was held in front of the city attorney, or if that, those type of things, it could be used as a control measure. Stay away from gray area. However, I've been on the council for 10 years, and although things are, I would say, running smoothly, we don't always agree, but we're civil to each other. Things can change in the next 20 years, 30 years. I witnessed council agendized items up to 10, sometimes more than that. And they were, I didn't feel, I'm speculating, or this is my opinion, that they were always for the benefit of the city. And so I would like to have some level of control, so there's another screening level, so it's not just someone randomly using the council and the city to push their own personal agenda, which maybe is not the agenda of the people of the city of La Mesa.
Well, to that point, and I'll run it by Councilmember Baber, I'm thinking on my feet. I know that in other cities, they have a portion of the agenda where they say future items, and you could, at that point, say, I would like to put a future item on the agenda. Do I have a second to do this? And you would get it out and open. And I think that would foreclose any Brown Act violations. See what I'm saying? You would come up and you'd say, I have an idea for an agenda item. Do I have a second to at least get it on the agenda? Would that work? Is that something you'd be comfortable with?
One of the key things of the four is to have things in writing.
Yes.
Okay? So that would eliminate the writing requirement. I think things should be written down in order to be docketed. It creates too much confusion when there's a bunch of oral requests going around for what should or should not be docketed. I don't think you have a Brown Act problem if I say, hey, I have an idea, would you sign the memo? If you say no, then there's a problem, and maybe I don't have the support to go forward on that. Mm-hmm. The concept of getting one is if you can't have one, if no other councilman thinks it's a good idea, you probably shouldn't bring it up, because you're probably not going to get a second at the time, and you're probably wasting everyone's time, and there's a risk that you could be very, perhaps you think it's the world's greatest idea, but it isn't. So,
Well, and that's where you said if no other councilman thinks it's a good idea, then maybe it shouldn't be on there. And I agree with that. There should be two people bringing it forward to make sure. But I'm trying to figure a way to fashion it so that we don't have accusations that you violated the Brown Act, even if no one did. And so I'm thinking on my feet how to do that.
The idea that this would create some new Brown Act is
not new.
This would create a new type of Brown Act problem. It's probably a little worrisome, perhaps more, because in an oral situation, the same thing could happen. So how is it that in the written situation it becomes a danger, but in the oral situation it isn't?
The oral situation would be an open session.
We don't do that in open session now.
I know. That's why I'm trying to figure a way to accomplish this with
Well,
assuaging the fears.
If this is an
I'm
issue, we can just roll the item to next time and
I'm-
let Council McWhorter come in and if everybody's not comfortable with this.
I'm, to be honest, comfortable with it as stated, but using my lawyerly self to also look at other ideas. And I'd like to hear from Councilwoman Sterling, too.
Yes.
Yes,
You know, this is about transparency, and we want to brag that we're transparent, but we're cutting down on our transparency by something like this. We have never had to have two people to put something on the agenda. Number one, we have to give it in writing, and back up information with that in writing we give to the city clerk. We always bring it in on a Wednesday prior to the council meeting on Tuesday. So this is, that's nothing new here. We have always done that. What's new is this garage tinkering, and that's what you two are doing, garage tinkering. To put two signatures when each individual that itemizes something, each individual is elected by the people of this city. And then to not say that that's valid, that that's good enough, I think that's a shame. I am surprised. When I read that, I knew right away, with a contentious council, that item would never be heard by the public. That's wrong. So it's a violation, in my opinion, of the Brown Act before that. Terry Frank, he says, it's not a violation if you go to one person and that one person says no. If you have to go to two, as I said, in a contentious council, you have violated the Brown Act. I do not see, with all of the things that are going on in our city, that we would have to tinker around with something like this to try to upset and think you're doing a good job. Absolutely not.
Can I respond briefly?
Sure.
I'm surprised at some of these comments because let's keep in mind, in order for an item to even be discussed at a council, it requires a second, okay?
Yes.
So, when you have a memo that two people sign, it implies, yeah, there might be a second for this, and we can have this discussion. But an item that one person wants to bring forward and it doesn't have a second can't be discussed anyway under the way we docket things. So it makes it a little bit more efficient.
I agree with the efficiency. I'm just trying to look at the ways in which this can be accomplished, thinking off the top of my head without...
Well,
I'm all for tinkering if it makes things efficient. I'm always for that. Anything that improves efficiency is a good thing. And I don't mind that at all. For me, it's just making sure that we don't fall into any gray area as we improve our efficiency.
and whether this would happen in a contentions council, I think this is the time to bring it up because without pointing any fingers or naming names, if there was a contentious council, that's when we do have 14 council-initiated items. And when you sat through those meetings, you question why people were putting it on, and that was transparent. They were doing it out of vindictiveness, and they were doing it, one person did one thing, and then the next person did the other thing, and the public would say, well, why is that on there? And I truly had no idea why things were on there. So, as far as level of control, now, as far as the city attorney's comment regarding the Brown Act, not trying to throw him under the bus, but his answer was gray area too. So, I think that's what we need to consider. What's more important or valid here regarding, do we want to have some level of not control, but responsibility, that you're responsible instead of just people just being gunslingers and just putting whatever they want on the agenda.
And that's what I like about this.
Yes.
We all sat through meetings where dueling forces seem to agendize everything. And it's the public's time, our staff's time. It's not efficient to do that. So then it becomes, like you said, gray area. What's the way to get around that?
Mrs. Sterling wanted to respond, then Mr. Baber.
I don't, I don't think this is efficiency at all. I think there's a hidden agenda here, and I'm not saying what it is. As far as your comment, Mayor, I understand that some time ago we did have somebody on the council that was very astute with figures and wanted to weigh and measure every figure, and so I think the maximum amount of items he put on was 5. But it's okay. It told the people, it told the public what this guy was all about. And they have a right to hear from their council members without, and they got to know him. He's no longer here. But that's how you get to know somebody, is the questions they ask. To cut down on creativity and the elected person's input, unless they get a second elected person's input, is wrong. This is, to me, it's just, as I said, a hidden agenda, because we haven't had any problems like you're referring to forever, really.
Years.
Well, 18 months.
Yes.
But prior to that, it was more than one person. I'm going to say it was 3. And they would take the council, they would hold us hostage, and things were changed. And there was a lot of arguments, and there was a lot of people making accusations at one another. It was tough to watch from the public side.
Well, I don't see it that way.
Okay.
I think that whatever a council member offers or whatever they want, and I don't see anybody violating that or overdoing it. I think that it's, not one of us here have done anything like that, except I'd say this is pushing the docket a little bit.
Well, and what I said at the beginning was, was that this is the time to have this discussion when we're not contentious. Mr. Baber.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. City Attorney. I think we might be reading Council Resolution 2002-059 traditionally wrong. What it says is, in order to get something on the docket, currently, a member goes to the city manager, and it can be oral, and say, I'd like to put this on the docket. And the city manager is the first filter at that point, okay? It's not the council member. Under the current rule, the council member doesn't have unilateral authority. It's first to the city manager, and if the council member and the manager agree, then it moves to the next phase. Then it comes in writing. We say, well, we've traditionally put this in writing. The second phase has traditionally been put in writing. The first phase has not been traditionally put in writing, where a member can orally go to the manager and say, I want this on. Now, I think our manager is awesome. I think she's very strong-willed. But there may be some future manager who could be easily rolled by one strong-willed council member. And this protects the manager too, because the manager would say, okay, council member X, that sounds a little interesting, but I think the rule says you have to have someone else sign off on it. It's also, for a future manager, it says you can't just intimidate that person. You have to show up with something in writing and another council member, and then the manager's the filter. And guess what? Either under the old rule or the proposed amendment, if the manager thinks it's ridiculous, the manager can veto it too. Now, I don't know how often Mr. Witt or any of your other managers ever vetoed it, but that's what it says. Am I reading that wrong, Mr. City Attorney?
I don't have the resolution from me. I'm going to borrow it from you.
Okay.
I know I gave it to you, and it's probably been about 10 years since I've read it.
Here it is. This is the one you gave me at the last meeting.
While he's reading, I'd like to interject something. Because we don't have a full council, would you be opposed to continuing this until Vice Mayor McWhorter is here? Or, I'm asking the two of you. If you are, it's up to you. It's your decision.
I would, that would be fine with me, just so he's here. Your thoughts?
We have a full council.
It sounds like you're no longer supporting the memo.
No, I do support the memo, but,
Then we could probably go forward then.
Okay,
but I wanted to give him the opportunity.
that's fine. Yes, sir.
After reviewing it, Councilmember Baber is accurate with respect to the council-initiated request shall be made directly to the manager. And if the city manager and the council member making such a request agree, that the issue is appropriate and relevant to official business of the city, the manager then notifies the clerk to put it on the agenda. So I just want to be absolutely sure. So that's accurate.
Okay.
So pursuant to the memo, I say, I want to put this on the agenda, you say, yeah, and it's in writing directly to the manager, not the clerk. And then, unless Yvonne says, oh my gosh, why are you putting this on the agenda? She notifies the clerk. I've always sent stuff directly to the clerk.
So the manager can still
Yes.
Yes.
still oppose any initiated item.
And working with many, many city managers, it's not always opposed. It's, hey, that's a good idea, Mr. Babrick. You mind if we do it next month because we've got these other things? Usually you want to bring it to the manager because the manager can see the whole sort of flow of docketing, and the manager can either tell you, interesting, but perhaps we can reconsider it. Or the manager will say, how about we do it in 2 months from now when we handle these other issues first? That's why you want the manager to have perhaps not the only veto power, but certainly a strong voice in docketing, or the docket just becomes this jumbled mess.
I have a further question, thinking on my feet again. Would you be comfortable with trying this for a time period, see if it does increase efficiency, and if it doesn't, then
How long would you like to try it for?
a couple years,
Fine. Put a
a year?
Okay, then you can take the motion that we have there, and you can add a line at the end. This sunsets on December 31st, 2018?
Yeah, because that.
Any problem with that?
Then we can check to see if it really does make it more efficient, and it seems like it will to me. And I like the idea of cooperation. You get to know that your people that you know on the council, and you go to them, makes it faster. It stops extraneous stuff, which I suffered through too, and so I'm
Sure.
okay.
City
But
attorney, can we sunset something?
Absolutely.
okay.
And if it works, if it works, you can renew it. And you know something, if it doesn't work, you can kill it tomorrow if you want to.
Yeah, that would just, so we can test it out. But I really do like the idea of cooperation and vetting things and not having people put stuff on that perhaps makes the agenda 3 hours instead of 45 minutes. It's okay.
Any other discussion before we, is there any other comments, pardon me, not discussion? All right. Is there a motion?
So moved. With the sunset clause as I
Okay.
dictated it.
I'll second.
Okay.
Excuse me, will you please state the motion?
The motion would be that
Because he has his,
No, I can read it from here. If you look at the written, it would be to amend Council Resolution 2002-059 as stated in that memo. Do you want me to read the whole paragraph? But it's in the memo that you have, that you published.
Under one?
Yes. It would add the words in writing, it would add the words to, it would add the S, it would add, usually by Wednesday at noon before a Tuesday meeting, would add another S after council members, and it would add next.
All right, if that's your whole motion to amend that
Yeah.
resolution to read blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Okay.
So we revisit
With the sunset clause, that this
Revisit in.
item expires on December 31st, 2018.
unless renewed by prior council action or something.
Yeah,
Well, that's
that's sort of inherent
self-evident,
in it,
but-
yeah. Okay, is that clear?
And then we'll bring back a resolution amending it for final approval?
Um,
Or is this good enough for Glenn?
No,
Mr.
there's
City
going to have
Attorney,
to be, in order to amend the resolution, we're going to have to bring another resolution forward to do so.
Okay, fine.
All right.
Okay.
So can I ask the city attorney a question? The double reading applies, I thought that applied primarily in ordinances. You're saying resolutions require the double reading also?
Yeah, to amend this resolution, you're going to have to bring back a resolution that does that. I
And
mean, this is not a minute motion. If it were a minute motion, you guys could take the action right now. But it's a resolution that's in place, and it's going to have to be amended by
okay,
another
so then,
resolution.
fine.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
All right, so Baber, Alessio, Arapastathis voted yes. Sterling voted no. City attorney remarks.
Said too much as it is.
That's what you get the big bucks for.
Is there a word limit? I'd like to, before we adjourn, just also say that regarding the Oktoberfest, Mr. Dedman, I needed to point him out. Lynn Dedman worked above and beyond. He was down in walking the streets. That doesn't sound right. He was around the event all the time, from start to finish. He's devoted months and months of his time to making sure that that was a smooth event. So thank you on behalf of the council. All right,
Raise your hand.
we are adjourned. Thank you very much.